Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones, the former number 6 overall pick by the New York Football Giants, got a 4-year, $160 million deal, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Media. You can see it here. $94 million virtually guaranteed at signing, $82 million guaranteed over the first 2 years, $35 million in incentives, and a first-year cap number around $19 million. It is we'll see when the actual numbers come out. But if he's getting $82 million fully guaranteed over the first 2 years with some incentives built in, that means that worst case scenario, Daniel Jones just got 2 years and $41 million per year, which is a hell of a contract for a guy who didn't even have his 5th-year option picked up by the Giants, Brady.
This one is it's not surprising. I know some folks in the front office for the Giants, and I talked to them after the season. They said, hey, look, he earned it. We're going to be happy to pay him whatever it ends up coming to. I really thought, though, this would go down to the end where they'd go to a non-exclusive franchise tag route, see what potential other offers would be out there, and then agree probably to match whatever offer was made. Because I don't know that there would have been much of a market for Daniel Jones. It's a bit surprising when you look at the numbers and you compare him to some of the other quarterbacks and him making essentially, $41 million over the course of the next couple of seasons for 15 touchdown passes this past year. I know they're bullish on him, and you could talk to me about how they didn't have the type of talent around him at wide receiver to equate to the sort of success in the passing game. But I think they're going to find themselves a year from now in a position where they're still asking themselves whether or not he ultimately is the guy. And they'll have him under contract, and that's great. But that's the toughest part. I would have been probably a better fan of them using the tag on him in some capacity and then letting Saquon Barkley go into free agency and then figuring out what his market is. And look, you use the tag on Saquon, so you get to keep both. But the hard part is Daniel Jones has played his best football with Saquon Barkley. When Saquon Barkley is not a part of that backfield, Daniel Jones isn't the same quarterback. So if it's hard to differentiate the two, maybe you're looking at Daniel Jones saying if that's what he needs and he needs that much more out around him, how's he ultimately going to compete with some of the best in the league to try to win a Super Bowl when it's all said and done?
Yeah, and that's the thing is you have to have one of these franchise quarterbacks. We talk about it all the time, whether it's Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. You have to have the creme de la creme, the top tier, if you want to win a Super Bowl. And I think we can all agree that Daniel Jones is not that. As a matter of fact, if you ask me if I would rather have Derek Carr in his contract or Daniel Jones in his contract, I would pick Derek Carr. Absolutely. You're getting a slightly lower price, I think, and a slightly better value. And so it's almost like, who are the Giants competing with here? They're competing with themselves. Brady, I think you just said it. No one's going to give Daniel Jones $40 million per year. That could turn into $50 million per year if he gets his $35 million incentives. But if he hits those, then he'd be worth it. So I just think it's crazy.
Incentives, yeah.
I just think it's crazy that they gave him this contract. I would have hit him with the franchise tag. You let Saquon Barkley walk, as Brady mentioned, but you could go out and sign Kareem Hunt or try and get Jamal Williams or Rashad Penny. There's so many running backs that are free agents this year that if you're losing Saquon, you can find someone. Running backs are interchangeable parts. You can go out and find someone. You don't need to pay Daniel Jones $40 million per year.
So to me, the setup with the Giants, the biggest problem is that it is a mistake by ownership, one, to hire the previous regime. Now, granted, the previous regime drafted both of these guys, but they didn't get out of them. They didn't get out of them what they wanted to get out of them. It took this new regime of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to get out what they expected from Saquon Barkley, albeit, taking away that first year, and then Daniel Jones. Now, the mistake that was made by the front office, the previous front office, and by ownership, and this is not, and I understand why they made the mistake of not picking up Daniel Jones' 5th-year option. It looked like he was not going to be a guy who was worth that type of money. We just seen in the class before, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, 5th-year options get picked up. It becomes a nightmare. You have to, like, the Panthers picked up Sam Darnold and looked like idiots. And that's what the Giants were thinking. But if you draft a player like Saquon Barkley, who even as a running back is a high-level name, high-level talent, is going to command a pretty big, he's going to command a decent contract. And you draft a guy like Daniel Jones at 6 overall. So 2 top 10 picks, and you don't pick up the 5th-year option on Daniel Jones, you have inherently placed him on the same timeline as Saquon Barkley. So if you have any inclination whatsoever to sign either of those guys or both of those guys, you just need to just bite the bullet and take that 5th-year Danny Dimes and see if maybe he can turn the corner. And so they had the chance to do that. It was a mistake not to do that. And ultimately it gave the Daniel Jones and his new representation, because CAA apparently didn't want to talk to the Giants, leverage in terms of being able to say, hey, look, we know you guys want to sign Saquon Barkley. And we know you guys clearly want to sign Daniel Jones, but you have to sign one of them because you can only use the franchise tag on one guy. And the smart move is to pay Daniel Jones, you pay the quarterback, and you tag the running back. We'll talk about that in a minute after we take a break. But this deal is really, really rich for a guy who had flashed last year, but hasn't exactly proven it to be a consistent winner at the level. And I do wonder, Brady, how much of the emphasis to keep Saquon and Daniel Jones on this roster came from the coaching staff in the front office versus coming from ownership, who loved both guys the second that they drafted them.
No, it's a good question. I mean, only they know internally that. I think the thing I was going to transition to just asking is, where does he even rank in the NFC East as far as quarterbacks? Is he third? I mean, if Lamar was to go to Washington, I mean, clearly he would probably be fourth in that case. I mean, I kind of look at it and wonder, did the Giants get better today? Probably keeping Saquon Barkley, yes. You've got more of an assured, product in what he is. And Daniel Jones, you're hoping he can build, off of what he did this past year. And I think it's hard to believe, or it's hard to think that there wouldn't potentially have been another option. I mean, let's just put it this way. If you could have gotten Lamar Jackson, would that not have been an upgrade? Now, granted, you got to pay him, but the reality is you might have had the opportunity to look for other options that might have been better than the current quarterback you're now paying at least $82 million, 90 some virtually guaranteed over the course of the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, it's a big contract. Now, at the same time, we see this a lot where the initial report is 4 years, $160 million.
It's a 2-year deal. It's a 2-year deal.
It's 2 years. Yeah, if they want to, but if you thought that this might be a remote possibility, pick up the 5th-year option and then use the franchise tag, which you won't have to use it because you use it on you want to use it on Saquon because you used it the year before. It's just a poor long-term management process. And granted, you split up the front office change and everything. You have all this turnover with the coaching staff in the front office. I understand that makes it hard, but it's just poor long-term thinking. Just eat the $18 million or whatever it was on the 5th-year option, pay him that, and worst case is you get that extra year at a much lower cost to find out if he's the guy. Now you have 2 years at a higher price. So
right.
Yeah, it's just not a perfect management job by the Giants.